Welcome, Spiritual Mag. My name is Sam Bell. Today we're going to focus on, did you get the coronavirus vaccination and why? Did you get the vaccine? Why? Did you get the coronavirus vaccination and why? And how complex adaptive systems produce catastrophic outcomes without centralized malice. Yeah. So this is an analysis of mass harm narratives and perceived global malfeasance. When intellectually serious audiences confront the notion that a global system may have exposed populations to harm under the banner of public health, the initial task is not moral adjudication, it is epistemological containment. One must first understand how such a conclusion becomes cognitively plausible, emotionally compelling, and socially transmissible within the human mind and physical brain. Loved one, the the belief that harm must be intentional does not arise in a vacuum. It emerges at the intersection of breached institutional trust, accumulative collective trauma, and the evolved human propensity to identify agency in the presence of threat. Under conditions of uncertainty, notably when bodily integrity, survival, or the safety of loved ones is perceived to be at stake, the mind prioritizes explanatory coherence over problematic humility. In such contexts, malevolent intent can actually feel more tolerable than just randomness, incompetence, or systemic dysfunction. This is not a moral failure. It is a chicken little neurocognitive adaptation. It feels better to pretend than refocus elsewhere. Consequently, modern humans tend to favor pureed, plausible explanations when confronted with opaque or frightening outcomes. When injuries, chronic illnesses, or deaths follow large scale interventions, explanations grounded purely in statistical error, emergent complexity, or institutional misalignment often feel inadequate, especially to those directly affected. Loved one, this is the time and place to elevate consciousness, not to dismiss suffering or invalidate perception, but to widen the explanatory frame. This is backing away from the third and fourth dimensional levels of consciousness, which opens the door to the fifth dimensional realization of our spiritual inheritance. Loved one, modern societies function as complex adaptive systems composed of semi autonomous yet deeply interdependent institutions. Governance, biomedical, pharmaceutical production, regulatory agencies, media ecosystems, financial markets, and increasingly algorithmic decision systems. No single node governs the whole. Instead, loved one, outcomes emerge from feedback loops, incentives, time pressures, and informational asymmetries. Historically, institutional legitimacy depended on three stabilizers: transparency, temporal pacing, and intelligibility. Policies unfolded slowly, errors were legible. Public trust had time to recalibrate. In contrast, contemporary global crises, pandemics, wars, ecological shocks, compressed decision-making timelines dramatically. Populations are asked to consent to high-stakes interventions under conditions of urgency, uncertainty, and incomplete data, often mediated through digital platforms optimized for speed rather than comprehension. This compression destabilizes trust. Simultaneously, the modern informational environment, driven by algorithmic amplification, engagement based media incentives, vast data repositories, and AI curated content, exerts measurable effects on cognition. Neuropsychologically, sustained exposure to high arousal digital stimuli heightens amygdala activation, reduces tolerance for ambiguity, and reinforces binary moral framing. Under these conditions, complex system failure is frequently misperceived as coordinated intent. The mind seeks narrative closure or just acute brain fart. Thus, when harmful outcomes follow large scale actions, explanations framed as systemic error, unintended consequence, or emergent failure often fail to satisfy emotional and cognitive needs. Intentional causality, someone decided this, someone allowed this, restores a sense of order, even if that order is malevolent. Chaos. Chaos, by contrast, that just threatens existential meaning. Here lies the central point, loved one. Catastrophic outcomes do not require a conspiracy. I repeat, catastrophic outcomes do not require a conspiracy. They need only misaligned incentives, accelerated timelines, suppressed dissent, reputational risk aversion, and feedback delays. Features intrinsic to complex adaptive systems under stress. Loved one, to elevate consciousness, therefore, is to resist the seduction of simplified villain narratives without lapsing into institutional naivete. Seriously, it's too It's to hold grief is to maintain skepticism and to hold critical inquiry simultaneously. It is to recognize that systemic harm can be real, profound, and morally consequential, even in the absence of centralized malicious intent. Elevating our own consciousness reveals that making war is profane and our own defense is compulsory. Loved one, elevating consciousness is our cognitive fruition. This focused holding of our spiritual complexity is not submission, it is our dimensional sovereignty. Only from this dimensional perspective can societies meaningfully reform 3D and 4D institutions, restore trust through transparency, and reduce the likelihood of repeating large scale harm. Without it, we remain trapped, oscillating between blind faith and totalized suspicion, both of which serve no one. The answer is always love. You and all your loved ones are always in my prayers. Samuel Joseph Bell, civilian journalist, Orion experiencer, spiritualmag.org.